Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or ADHD, is one of the most frequently diagnosed disorders in children, yet it remains poorly understood and is one of the most commonly misdiagnosed disorders worldwide. Although the number of children wrongly diagnosed with ADHD is unknown, there is evidence to prove the misdiagnosis. Over time, appropriate studies have been conducted, and more pediatricians are discovering that ADHD is overdiagnosed, overtreated, misdiagnosed, and even mistreated. A 2010 study from Michigan State University concluded that nearly 1 million children had been potentially misdiagnosed with ADHD. Some of the symptoms that may be mistaken for ADHD include poor nutrition or hunger, hearing issues, autism, and my favorite, kids just being kids. Given this information about the misdiagnosis of ADHD has been widely understood for at least a decade or more, I was surprised to find that the FDA had approved a new treatment for ADHD. This treatment is in the form of a video game, and as far as I know, it's the first of its kind.
Imagine a medicine made up of pixels and play. Created with cognitive science and proven in clinical studies. A video game
That's what I'm talking about.
that invites your child to discover new worlds,
You did it! Nice!
build their universe,
That question was tough.
capture mystic creatures, boost past challenges, and unlock new characters,
Oh yeah!
all to create positive change. Introducing Endeavor RX, the first prescription ADHD therapy
Look at us, rocking it again.
delivered through a video game experience. Designed to work alongside your treatment plan
Hey, whoa! You were all round, and I was all woot. Awesome!
and proven to improve attention.
The company that created Endeavor RX is called Akili Interactive, and in November of 2018, they met with WTF Health to discuss the gamification of treating these childhood disorders.
It's Jessica DeMassa with WTF Health. I'm here at Frontiers, and joining me now in the studio, I have Vincent Hennemont. He is with a company called Akili, and you guys are using a version of gamification in healthcare for a number of different disease states, right? So talk to me a little bit about what you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jessica, for having us here. So we use actually video game as a way to deliver our treatments. So
Okay.
our treatments are developed as digital therapeutics. We go through clinical trials and normal validation together with agencies. We use regular endpoints that every drug or pharmaceutical company would actually use as well. And we actually claim for the treatment of certain cognitive dysfunctions.
Okay, so talk to me about what you mean in terms of cognitive dysfunctions. Like, give us some diagnoses that you're working to help provide treatment for.
Yeah, as an example, our lead indication in ADHD, we treat attention deficits, inhibitory control, working memory, but other executive functions like cognitive control, your ability to pay attention and not listening to the background noise that we have just behind us.
Okay.
So that is one of the executive functions that is lacking in ADHD, for instance.
Okay, and so how is what you're doing different than using just typical gamification, the way that we would think of in terms of designing a game that's fun to play but also has some sort of a bent toward a health outcome. So how is what you're doing different?
So first of all, again, the video game is just a syringe to the treatment. We have a series of algorithms that are adaptive to each patient that monitor your cognitive impairments and adapt the challenge, the sensory stimulus, to which cognitive impairments you have. The video game is just delivering it. If you take any normal video game on the commercial outside street, they would actually deliver on a storyboard. you have to do certain stuff to go to the next level and blah, blah, blah. You know the story,
Yeah.
right? Here, we don't have a storyboard.
Okay.
The system actually just use the video game and deliver on what you need to have to actually get a clinical outcome.
Is it fun?
It's very fun, actually. And it's a very important
It
question.
didn't sound very fun for a minute.
It is fun, and it's also hard.
Okay.
It could be frustrating. So we use the analogy of the treadmill. So you can use speed and incline, right? If you want to train for the marathon, the system will adapt 30 times a second to what you need to do to be ready for the marathon. So think about a system that would use a video game and all the sensors that you can find on a device to train you to improve your cognitive functions. And so it's fun because we used video games and we had other means to deliver the treatments to maximize adherence and compliance. So typically in ADHD, we have north of 85% compliance to the prescription.
Okay, so tell me a little bit, I guess, about the business that you guys are running. So you're a pretty large company. You said you have 100 people, is that right? And you're based both in the US and here in Europe?
So we're not in Europe yet.
Oh, it's okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So we have two offices, one on the East Coast in Boston, the other one on the West
okay.
Coast.
With the team at Akili Interactive working with developers from LucasArts films on their roster, that's right, Star Wars, it's no wonder they're seeing huge rates of compliance. Are video games really the future of treatments for cognitive dysfunctions? Akili Interactive is betting on it, with plans to add treatments for depression, multiple sclerosis, and schizophrenia on the horizon. Sitting on the board at Akili Interactive is Chamath Palihapitiya, an early Facebook founder who was instrumental in launching the social media Leviathan globally, and he is founder and CEO of Social Capital, a Palo Alto-based venture capital firm. In November of 2017, Palihapitiya sat down with Stanford Business School and had a discussion about the effects of social media and teased out this idea of gamification of lives and how it could disrupt the delicate balance between the influence of social media with the social fabric of society that it could potentially erode.
If you're taking a deep and big bet, like you want it to be the right one, how do you know when that's true?
I think that fail-fast approach works in consumer internet businesses, but I don't think it works for anything that really matters. Basically. Consumer internet businesses are about exploiting psychology. And that is one where you want to fail fast because people are unpredictable, and so we want to psychologically figure out how to manipulate you as fast as possible and then give you back that dopamine hit. We did that brilliantly at Facebook. Instagram has done it, WhatsApp has done it, Snapchat has done it, Twitter has done it. So there are great examples. WeChat is doing it. There are great examples of failing fast is the right path to exploiting psychology of mass populations of people.
I want to bring us back to the point that you were making about exploiting consumer behavior in a consumer internet business. You said that this is a time for soul searching in social media businesses, and you were part of building the largest one. What soul searching are you doing right now on that?
I feel tremendous guilt. I think we all knew in the back of our minds, even though we feigned this whole line of there probably aren't any really bad unintended consequences. I think in the back, deep recesses of our minds, we kind of knew something bad could happen. But I think the way we defined it was not like this. It literally is a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. That is truly where we are. And I would encourage all of you, as the future leaders of the world, to really internalize how important this is. If you feed the beast, that beast will destroy you. If you push back on it, we have a chance to control it and rein it in. And it is a point in time where people need to hard break from some of these tools and the things that you rely on. The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. No civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation, mistruth. And it's not an American problem. This is not about Russian ads. This is a global problem. So we are in a really bad state of affairs right now, in my opinion. It is eroding the core foundations of how people behave by and between each other.
With this unusually candid admission, and with the understanding that social media is essentially a gaming out of our social lives digitally, I wondered why Palapatea's company Social Capital would invest over $100 million in a gaming company. Under COVID measures and digital interfaces that have exploded within those measures, we've seen the largest transfer of wealth in history funneled directly into the coffers of the big tech platforms. Equally, we've seen a mammoth rise in FDA-approved pharmaceutical stock, so naturally Palapatea is going to invest in this bizarre little marriage between big tech and the FDA called Endeavor RX. With over $1 billion in total investments at stake in this video game pharmaceutical, I had to wonder how such a deal could be forged. This question led me right back to Palapatea, labeled the SPAC King. SPAC is an acronym for Special Purpose Acquisition Companies, and what it comes down to is celebrity endorsements, blank checks, and deregulation. SPACs, through the celebrity endorsement of, say, the SPAC King, allows an empty holding company to become public. It is then issued a large stock valuation to acquire a private company, which then ends up controlling the entire company. This is called a reverse merger, which sounds a little bit too close to reverse mortgages, if you ask me. Another grift that tends to prey on low income or elderly who still owe mortgages on their homes. During lockdown in 2020 and 2021 and the introduction of tablet learning into the arms of millions of little users, parents were rightfully concerned about where the data being collected on these tablets was going and how it was being studied and why some children were being funneled into programs that focus on behavior, while others in higher tax brackets were still enjoying in-school learning and advancing in their academics. After all, parents themselves saw evidence of an all-around decline in their children as they spent more and more time on their tablets and their gaming programs. So concerned were they with their children's decline, they brought these questions up with their pediatricians.
You know, I've been on a soapbox about video games and cell phones and electronics, but I don't think you guys really understand how evil these devices really are. And I don't think you understand how much of an intervention these things are to destroy your children's brains. And I'll take it a step further. Every step of the development of a child comes with it a physical, mental, emotional, psychological, and spiritual stage of development. Every step. And you know, you don't have to do more than just feed, water, give sunshine, and love a child. Because the program is in there. Talk about God, talk about spirit, talk about native intelligence, talk about vital force. All the ingredients are in there to move us forward. You know, you don't have to teach a child to sit up or to walk or to potty train or to talk or to feed himself, right? Or to take off her clothes. You don't have to teach them. It's in the program. If given the right food, water, sunshine, and love. And so most of the stages of development require a lot of empty space, a lot of downtime, a lot of unknown and contemplation and just boredom. For those stages of development, for physical, mental, emotional, psychological, and spiritual input to enter into the child at each stage of development. And I was just at friend's house this past weekend, and their 12-year-old daughter was on the computer talking to friends for 14 to 16 hours both days I was there. And these parents are awake. But this stuff is so rampant. And it's what it does is it constantly fills children up and doesn't give their stages of development an opportunity to receive input to develop. And so what you're going to see, and what we're already seeing, is empty stages of development where these kids are not maturing. They're not developing the physical, emotional, mental, psychological, and spiritual stages that they need to take with them into adulthood. And so they're being robbed. They're being robbed. And I really, even the parents who are awake, I implore you, get these kids out of the devices. They are purely addictive and only meant to be addictive. And you are stunting. And Dr. T and I know this because we've worked with kids with neurodevelopmental disabilities, and we've worked with patients who are chronically inflamed. You will not have growth and development in places where you're inflamed. And these devices increase adrenaline, they increase addiction, and they increase the markers of inflammation. And in so doing, they stop development. And if the child comes off the device, I'm sorry, you don't go back to pick up where you left off. You actually miss pockets of important stages of physical, mental, emotional, psychological, and spiritual development. And we are in trouble if we don't stop this madness.
Given that Black kids are the targeted demographic for the misdiagnosis of ADHD, it looks as though the underprivileged communities are once again being cannibalized for profit schemes that come straight out of Silicon Valley. Did the SPAC king just ignore the 21 U.S. studies that spanned multiple decades, where researchers posit that marginalization, discrimination, racism, and an increased focus on Black children were influencing the ADHD misdiagnosis rate? Further, I live in a largely Black neighborhood and see evidence of the social ties forged in the fabric of their relationships. Those very social ties Palipatea doesn't want to see destroyed. And the 21-year study that I mentioned started in 1979, which just so happens to be right around the time that deep funding cuts to athletics departments and social programs in schools were made. Isn't it ironic we saw a sudden rise in ADHD diagnosis right around the time the kids had no place to participate in sports or activities or even socialize? I don't think I would be ruffling any feathers or insulting anyone by pointing out the obvious.
And that'll do it. It's over. The Golden State Warriors return to a familiar place. They're on top of the NBA world. The fourth title in 8 years.
The Black community in general is known for their athletic abilities, and they put great pride in their athletic programs and accomplishments. Palipatea himself should know this, since he was once part owner of the Golden State Warriors. But what better way to destroy the potential of a particular community's athletic abilities than by shackling them to a device or game based on a fabricated diagnosis? Is this what equity looks like? Are parents going to start believing these ADHD diagnoses when their kids are just being kids? Were the ADHD-centered programs that had seen a substantial dip in funding over the years due to lack of interest and skepticism over the diagnosis itself suddenly given another shot in the arm and made relevant again because of this deal? And were these funding tools like SPAC given viability in a volatile market because of FDA approval over something like a video game or vice versa? Who's benefiting?